Uh-oh, that's weird. An error occurred. Oh. Wait, it says it's live.
Yeah.
Maybe let me just try to hit go live again. Otherwise, it says it's live. So just give me a minute. It seems like we're having tech issues. All right, I think we're live, and welcome everybody to this webinar. I have three amazing women with amazing practices. And so if you have any comments or questions, please throw them in the chat. We would love to hear from you and be able to answer questions if you have any specific ones. But otherwise, I've got lots of questions for the ladies today, and we'll see where the conversation goes. And as always, I like to jump right in. So if you can give us a quick introduction on who you are and what you do, and we'll start with Jenny and go around the room here. Jenny, can you help us out?
Jamie, so great to be here, and so great to be with Johanna and Connie, two wonderful colleagues and friends as well. So my name is Jenny Glick. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, a certified sex therapist gone rogue, and decided to do my own thing in 2018 and make up my own rules. And now I live by the ethos of what brings me pleasure, what feels inspiring in my business and in my life. And I guide women who are entrepreneurs in relationships that maybe aren't as fulfilling as they might love to follow their own desire in order to have a life that they adore.
That's beautiful. And Johanna, can you share with us what you do?
Absolutely. Great to be here. Great to be here with you both as well. I am the founder of the Family Imprint Institute. And essentially that means none of us get to be the way we are by accident. We all have imprints from our parents and even our grandparents that we haven't even considered are influencing us. And so I'm a little bit more like a detective than a therapist or a coach to find out what's really going on, to give you more freedom and more clarity, and so that you're making decisions that are right for your life.
And Connie, help us out. What are you in the middle of?
Hi, I'm excited to be here too and love this group. And so I'm Connie Jones, and I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and I own two businesses, Arise Counseling and Coaching, which is a brick and mortar counseling and coaching business, and then my own coaching practice, which is I also am a licensed professional counselor and went off into the into my bliss and into my own freedom, and now I coach leaders. I coach Christian and heart-centered, mission-driven business owners how to live the life of freedom and create more ease and enjoyment and abundance in their business on their terms, in the way that they want to, building the business that they love and that they were created for. And I absolutely love it.
So how long have each of you been doing this on your own? Jenny, I think you mentioned kind of 2018 is when you sort of went rogue. Is that what you say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went rogue in 2018, but I've been in this industry for, 25 years, a long time.
Yeah, very cool. And Johanna and Connie, how long have you guys?
Yeah, I've been in this industry for 20 years and the special systemic focus for about 15.
And having your own business the whole time.
Yeah, I'm psychologically unemployable. I just have to do my own thing.
We're all rogues. I have been a therapist for 20 years and then been coaching since 2010. And then had my own practice since 2010 also. Yeah.
Very cool. So I want to start off with the question, and you guys kind of interact and discuss, and I'll kind of take a step back. I want to hear from the three of you how you define success, since this is kind of about success and mindset, having a thriving practice. And how do you define success, and how has that changed from maybe what you originally thought it might look like?
Oh my gosh, can I start? I'm chomping at the bit here. So good. I'm also noticing how we all chose like these complementary colors together. So lovely. So it used to be in the beginning for me, my success was really driven by what was outside of me, and so I was a therapist and I worked for other groups and nonprofits. And then success was to have my own practice. So I did that. And then success was growing my practice and employing other contractors. So I did that. And then success was, the money and all of these things that were very external And in the last several years, as I hit all of these multiple 6-figure goals and freedom goals and moved to Mexico and moved back and, houses and all the things, I started realizing that pleasure was not part of my success. And it was kind of this mind-blowing thing because I work with women, I have a master's degree in women's studies also. And so I've found myself to be a very kind of feminine oriented woman, but very much showing up in my masculine, and like the pleasure, the sensation of pleasure. So for me, I think about like mindset is like a very masculine expression, right? Mindset is great, but being in your senses, sensing things, that's the feminine, right? And so in the last couple of years, I've really shifted everything to how do I sense pleasure in my body, that's success, what's going on in my physical body with my business, which has changed everything for me. So that's
I just lean right into that. That sounds so incredible. I relate a lot with what Jenny had shared. I mean, I think many of us who are growing a therapy or coaching practice, I worked for these brilliant physicians who really got the mind-body connection, but I was really kind of building their business. And it was one of those setups where a large percentage of the clients I saw went back to the clinic. And so there was this sort of growing edge where, ready or not, I guess I'm going to grow into my own practice because there was just too much money going out to the clinic. And so that really felt risky. And then I kind of did that and thought, okay. And then it started to grow into an international practice. And I think a real measure of success was I'm a Canadian that could never get on board with Canadian winters. And a year ago, my family and I moved to Mexico. And so here we are in an area of this beautiful country with 360 days of sunshine. And I'm getting used to that. And so I'm kind of leaning into what Jenny's talking about, this idea of it's not just the checking of the boxes and the, this goal and that goal, but about really enjoying every day. And it's been a very interesting, a little uncomfortable learning for me that just because this goal has been reached, it doesn't mean I'm in pleasure yet. It doesn't mean I've stopped sort of going, okay, where's the push and where's the drive? And so what Jenny's describing is, I think, my next growing edge, because as the longer you're in business, what does success even mean if you're not enjoying your life, if you're not playing, if you're not, even taking time off for me is a real stretch from a mind relaxation perspective. So I think that's where I'm growing into.
I completely agree. I could have, I could say ditto to all of that. I was programmed, conditioned on every level for achievement and performance. And I was, the warrior. I was going to strive, and everything was a struggle. Everything was hard. And my mindset was, and my programming had taught me that the harder you work, the more you self-sacrifice, the more good girl you are, the more you get right, the more successful you are, and the more good happens to you. And that came at a cost to me. And I had a lot of success by a worldly cultural standard. And it worked for me to a certain level. It helped me, check those boxes and establish some, feel like I was achieving something, but it cost me my health. It cost me my happiness. It cost me relationships. It stunted my growth and it limited me. And so the last 10 years of my life have been about finding harmony and wholeness and finding enjoyment and ease and reconditioning, reprogramming, and not out of a doing more, but out of a being more, out of breaking out of all of the limiting, not just limiting mindsets, but limiting perspective. Jenny and I've been talking about illusions and reading and studying, and it's this illusion that I created for myself that I am, that the world is this way, and that things have to be like this, and that I have to show up like this, and that I have to do, and it has to look like this, and all the shoulds and the supposed tos and the things that wear us out, that are not serving us and not allowing us to show up in the fullness and the freedom of who we were really made to be. And so we can't enjoy anything that we have created because it becomes a prison to us. And so I'm breaking out of all the prisons, and just, freedom is the goal right now, and freedom and enjoyment and ease in every aspect of my life. And it gets better every day. And that's now what I'm so passionate about teaching too, and helping others begin to do out of the true essence of who you are, not the other way around.
Well, I just wanted to add to what Connie said, because I think for me, this last year has been a learning that freedom is not a place. I think I thought once I got here, wow, I'm free, and freedom is inside. It's this, they talk about mindset from that perspective of, do I give myself that space to play now that I'm here? And to be honest with you guys, a lot of that answer is hell no. There's things to do, and we've got all this stuff up in flux, so we've got to get her done. And shifting out of that way of being in business is what lights me up these days.
Mm-hmm. We're creative, powerful beings. We're, spiritual beings living in a physical world. And so it's like, but we hand that power away, not even knowing it, to all kinds of things out, like Jenny says, outside of us, to look for that sense of freedom, to try to create what it is that we want to feel inside. And it never is enough. And so we don't understand that it's about coming home. It's about coming back to, maybe for the first time ever, reclaiming who we are, and discovering those, the natural, and then the even expanded higher version of ourselves that has been hiding from us, that we didn't even know was hiding, because we were taught this limited programming and this limited conditioning and these limitations in our mindset. And it's just breaking free from all of that keeps us stuck and frustrated.
Mm-hmm. Can I add one more thing? So good.
I was going to say, Jenny, I'm just not, it feels like there's more, like something's going to.
Well, I love so much what you both are saying, because so much of it is how that conditioning. It's just the practice of the struggle of feeling good. As a sex therapist, it's like, we sort of get off on it's so hard, and creating the struggle so that I can be on top of it and look what I did. Right. And so to see where it is that there's a part of us that desires the adventure of it. My family and I were rock climbers, and part of what makes rock climbing fun is you don't know what's going to happen. You put on your pack and you go out in the middle of the wilderness, and you could get hurt, and you could be on the wrong route, and all these things, but that's the adventure of it. If we could just be like I Dream of Jeannie, and be boop, on top of the mountain, that's no fun, because the fun is the adventure. And so for me, it's learning how to be in the adventure, because I believe we're here to do three things: to play, to create, and to be a full expression of us. Right. And those three things. And if that means there's also wealth involved, of time or of money or whatever, amazing. But for me, I'll speak from my experience, and a lot of the women who I work with, it's the expression part. They feel like they can't be them, because if they are, they're going to make somebody mad or turn away clients, that they can't play because they have a to-do list that's this long, and they can't create because what will people think of me? I have this particular, goal or training, and I can't leave that, whatever, or I have to support my family in this particular way. And so those three aspects of who we're here to be and to engage in the adventure of life are like a hose with a knot in it, right? They're totally kinked up. And then we have all these, symptoms and problems and mental health issues and physical issues and relationship problems and all of this, because we're just not trained. But it's not a bad thing. I mean, that's the other thing, is we're just here to experience the contrast of what it's like to not be me. Here I am, not being me. Wow, that feels hard and difficult. And I'm arguing with my husband now, and this is happening. And what if I be more me? Then what happens? And how does that feel? Wow, it's hard for me to have pleasure. I want to go back to work. It's hard for me to open to more time. And just to be in that experience of it, right? As humans. So
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was just going to say one of the things that that Jenny just said is so true in my life, that one of the things that I struggled with the most was, how do I be the good girl? How do I be good and honor what's in me and honor my gifts and my abilities and my purpose, and listen to my heart and give in to my desires and my pleasure? Those two to me were in conflict forever and ever and ever. And I was afraid of that. I was so afraid of letting and then of course you bring in, you've got I had a strong religious background. And so as a Christian, it was like, well, can I honor God and feel pleasure? Am I going to just give in to my flesh completely? And am I just going to go off the deep end? And I was afraid of that. And will people, approve of that? And will I be okay? And will I just be sinful? Or how can I be good? How can I honor who I was made to be and be good and serve and honor my purpose and express my giftings and glorify God while enjoying life too? And that was so hard for me to understand how I could do both. And it's breaking free of the lie that I can't do both. And knowing now that I can do both and I don't have to be afraid of it. And the worst thing isn't going to happen. And actually what was happening is I was creating the inevitable by being so afraid of it. And it was keeping me in more bondage. And then I had dis-ease in my body and, dis-ease in my mind. And, I had all these, health problems and was exhausted and, wasn't functioning well. And what we don't understand is that we're blocking the flow of abundance when we're not creating and when we're not in joy and when we're not in pleasure, because we were created for pleasure in the first place. And so the beings in the garden, that's the way I see things, from the beginning, we were all created for pleasure, but we get so far away from that and get into the toil and the striving and the struggle and everything's hard. And we're trying to make things happen and we lose ourselves and don't realize that we're actually damming up and we're in resistance and we're damming the flow and we're damming the abundance. And then we end up, sick and miserable and frustrated and stuck and limited. And then we have none of it. And it's just this vicious cycle. And
you bring up something so important, Connie. You just touched on something huge, which is this idea of being the good girl. Mm-hmm. And so many of us come from the conscience of our family, the conscience of our culture, the conscience of religion, whatever sort of system we belong to. Sure. And that organizes what we feel we have to do to belong. And so this whole idea of, if I leave my profession like Jenny did to go rogue, does that mean I no longer belong to Sex Therapists Association? If I move to Mexico, do I no longer belong to my family in Canada who thinks I've, lost it, to be able to follow what feels right for me? And so being a good girl and giving ourselves permission for pleasure and play and following what feels right inside are often at total opposite ends. And so that's a huge piece of really claiming what's right for us, to be able to follow what's right and the guilt that comes along with that. There's not a lot of transformation without guilt. And I think we're taught to avoid guilt at all costs. And I think it's a prime ingredient to a part of living a life that's one of choice. One of the founders of the work that I do, he talked about, you are a very good girl at a very high cost, meaning that's how she belonged to her family. Yeah.
So if we think about like our businesses and how this has impacted your business, like this transformation that you've had to go through, what are some of the things that are tangible or experiences or examples that you can really be vulnerable about to share for others that might be in this process of like, this all sounds good, but how do I actually, what does it look like? Why does it matter? What?
Well, I can share because this is so so hits home to me on so many levels. Being a therapist and stepping away from the clinical right way to do things, and everything being clinical and being from a, in my mind, pathological kind of clinical filter. And I don't see things that way. I don't buy that. I am all about freedom. You were not created to manage symptoms. We were not created to be labeled with a disorder. What is disorder? Like when we're in disorder, we're just not being ourselves, and we're just out of alignment. And so that didn't sit well with me. It wasn't that wasn't enough for me to teach someone to manage symptoms. And when I believe that we can be free and that we can live in that, in the wholeness, in the harmony of who we were made to be, in alignment. And but we have to get honest and do some hard things and say some hard things to ourselves and to others and make some hard decisions. And so that was one for me, was like not buying into the therapist model of session by session, dollars for hours, no longer just being willing to work myself to death at my own expense, not buying into insurance, not buying into the healthcare system. On some levels, doing things in a way that, like Jenny used the word, is rogue, and putting it out there and saying, no, this is the way that I do it, and people not being okay with that, and it being different, and it being like, whoa, who does she think she is? And wow, is she being ethical? And is she doing that? And it's like not just going along with things that don't feel okay inside of me, like that. And then in the business, creating what I believe that we all have a divine design inside of us. We have this vision, we have this purpose, this passion that fuels us, and we are creators, and that's unique. The way that we solve problems in the world, the way that we were made to do what we do in the unique way that we were made to do it, is completely it's ours, and it's not going to look like somebody else's. And we've got to know ourselves, and we've got to be quiet enough and be willing to be courageous enough to go inside and tap into that inner wisdom and that vision and that creative power inside, and really listen to it and do it our way. And people are going to judge that. They're not going to understand that. They're not going to, it's not, it doesn't go along with the good girl a lot of times. And so being willing to step out courageously and do things that are in alignment, that's one of the things. Another thing is, just learning that, asking for, doing things the way that I love doing them, teaching, doing things in what feels easeful and enjoyable to me, what brings me life, what brings me joy, and not just going along with what I've always known or what somebody else is doing. And it, the cookie cutters, the strategies, the formulas, I've thrown all that out. It's just, it creates more doing and more frustration and more overwhelm and more overwork. And I've just not bought into it. So, and then that's what I teach, help people how to tap into what's inside of them, because the answers are inside of us.
Yeah, I would concur with what Connie's saying. And I think part of my lens is knowing, for me, and I think this may be true for some people, maybe not all people, because we're all different, but that if I have a desire and something's lighting me up, it's my invitation if I want to follow it. And so when I was, got my licensure and I did the therapist thing, it was fine, but it actually never fit me. And then I was struggling against it because I wanted to do it differently. And then I thought something was wrong with me and I need to do more training and all of this, which was, I have no judgment about that. It was a fine period of growth. And then when I got to the place in 2018, when I was like, I have something in me that I want to do. And in 2018, people weren't doing things online the way that they are now. And so having those voices of therapists who I loved say to me, that's crazy. You're at the top of your game, and then to do this thing online and to do it, like Connie said, in the way I wanted, which was mostly, but this was the thing. It was like, I took my idea and then paired it with this strategy to ensure that I could make, it was like a 50K month sort of coaching program thing. And I killed myself to do that, right? So I took my heart's desire and then paired it with this way that I believed I needed to do it in order to climb these mountains that weren't mine, but I'm not a victim to it. I chose it. I needed that experience. So I did that. And then even in these last many years, listening to what I want, and then how my mind has these stories like, well, you can't do it that way. You have to do it this way, even though I've really defined my life. And so this year, I named the year Pleasure Fire. That was my word for the year. And it's really been a practice of, how do I want to do everything? Like, my strategy is in here, and it's what feels good and easeful and lights me up, because I love my work, which I call my contribution. I don't call it work anymore. I love my contribution. I love engaging in it. I love the conversations that I have. And there are things I didn't love. Like, I don't love being on Zoom all the time. So I moved many of the clients who I work with. We meet by phone, and I sit outside my yard with my naked feet in the dirt, because I live in the desert, on the earth, with my sun hat on. And I'm so available because I'm in such a state of pleasure doing it my way. And my clients, most of them, I don't know if any are here watching, love it. They're like, oh my gosh, I can turn off the light in my office and lay on the floor and put my headset in and not have one more hour, or 2 hours or whatever we're doing of screen time. And so it's been such a joy for me to look at, how would I design it if I could do anything? Because P.S., I can, right? And any part of me that says, but what about, I'm like, oh, well, that's curious. Let's look at that. Who's this about? So.
I agree. The courage to do it differently, the courage to make your own rules, the courage to have it align from inside, not with what everyone else is doing. And I think anybody who's been in business for a few years, they have followed that coach, me too, that's led them completely away from with their inner knowing or that way, thinking I have to follow this. And it's just a learning of contrast. No, I don't have to follow this. That felt constricted and icky and awful. And here I go. It's just, for me, it was just refinement, that it doesn't have to look how someone else is doing it.
Whoops, I hit my camera instead of my mute button. I am loving what you're bringing up. And it's funny because recently I have had those same thoughts and same feelings of like, what is it that I really want to do? And what is it that I really, like, if I just believed it was possible, what is it that I would do? And one of those things is soul care in our home. Like, we live in the middle of Wisconsin. And so it's not a quick, easy drive for anybody. Like, they have to take a whole day off to come to us sometimes. And I've been putting it out there, like, if we offered soul care in our home, would you guys want to come and like try it? And I'm getting yeses.
Yes.
And people are taking time off to come. And I'm like, this is interesting, because this is what I really want to offer, right? Like, not something that somebody else told me I needed to do, or like you said, Jenny, the Zoom versus the not Zoom. I love being able to have this conversation with all of you, but I am loving the not Zoom time. And so, like, maybe somebody else is too. And it's just, it's been so freeing to explore, what do I really, really want? And then, like you said, Jenny, acknowledging when those things come up, when it feels super scary or it feels not safe. What am I afraid of? And a lot of times it comes down to being afraid of success and not just afraid of failure. Like, that is hard for me to acknowledge.
Yeah, I think it's so common, we're afraid to be seen. We're afraid to have the things that we say we want. Like I've said all this year, Connie knows, Connie and I are in conversation a lot, where I'm like, here's how I'm going to craft my life. And now I have it. And I'm like, shoot, okay. Like, wow, that, like, okay, this is like a whole new way. I feel like an octopus, like unfolding in like the wholeness of the ocean instead of this little tiny place that I put myself that felt very safe, because I knew exactly where the boundaries are. And lately what I'm doing is one of my coaches invited me into dancing with the question, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? There was no failure that you would succeed. And the other is that I've been playing with is, what would I do? Because for me, like many of us, my big fear is like money, right? Like, oh, well, I have to have whatever. So what would I be doing if I had $50 million, whatever the $100 million, $1 zillion, like whatever that is, to give me this perceived sense of safety where I never had to like do work again? What would I do? And I would do my contribution is what I would do. I would still be doing that. And I would actually have the exact life that I have now. I might go to Spain for a month, but outside, which I could do if I wanted to.
Which you're going to do anyway. Yeah.
Right, exactly. I'm like, I would just do that then. So it's a fun way to play with where it is we're putting ourselves in these boxes, right?
Yeah, and Jenny and I talk about this a lot too, and she reminds me of this when I forget. But and we don't even have to. It's not our job to figure out the how either. It's not. We don't have to burden ourselves with the how. We just have to follow our process and allow it to unfold, and allow the fullness and the truth of who we are to unfold. And as we do, and we drop all of the stuff that has been holding us back and been limiting us and creating resistance inside of us, then what happens is it shows up for us. But we don't trust that. And we're not bad for not trusting that. That's just, we want that security and that stability, but we're not willing to grow at the cost of holding on to security and that sense of stability when it feels confining. And so it's that, it's that staying in that tension and really allowing the growth process and following that place of that where we feel alive and what feels like expansion and growth, and what feels in alignment with where who I am today, not who I was yesterday or not who I was last month, but who I am today. And if I follow that in trust, then the how shows up, and I don't have to be concerned about the how, because I am that powerful of a creator. And so, but it's just getting out of our programming and our conditioning doesn't lean into, doesn't reinforce that as the truth. And so we stay stuck, and we just don't enjoy the things that we were put here to enjoy in the way that we were made to.
Gosh, can I relate to what you're saying, Connie? And I think I'm such a how-minded person. And so letting that go, gosh, maybe, years and years ago now, all I needed to do was look back at all the ways things did line up. As you let go and then something comes forward, so that I kind of built my trust muscle around, the howing and the figuring out never really got me there. But it was the greater I could build that trust muscle, the more it would show up. So it was pretty neat. I kind of had to prove it to myself to believe it.
That's so interesting, Johanna, because I'm thinking about, this conversation that we're having, and okay, let's be honest, we're all women here, and there's this masculine energy that we've been maybe thought we needed to play into and lean into a little bit more, and we're having a discussion about how really we had to find our own place and space and be true to ourselves. Is it possible, if we just take a moment and think about some of the other businesses that are being built, these high pressure environments, maybe they've got other people that they need, investors that they need to speak to. And maybe you guys have had clients like this over the years, so maybe you could speak to this a little bit. But is this reality that we're talking about, this reality for us, real for men? Is it real for other businesses? Is it just specific to the coaching business? I mean, I'm feeling it and I'm seeing it myself. But then sometimes you go into another environment and there's just hustle, grind. And they're like, that's how you need to do it. Don't you understand? Is it true for them or what is your experience then?
Yeah, they're human too. That's just, they're buying into the illusion. They're buying into the society cultural propaganda. And and it's coming, unfortunately, it's coming at a cost to them too. Those are a lot of the ones that I work with, and you guys too, I'm sure. We're seeing it everywhere, and it's just not exempt from anyone. It's just a matter of how long can you do it, and at what cost are you willing to do it. That's the bottom line. And it is not, no one is exempt, because everyone is human. And if we are, if we're buying into that, then it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, and I think of it in this, I think of life as just a game, an adventure, and we can all do it differently. And some people, it's like, that's their jam. I have family members that's their jam, and they make a lot of money and they do it that way. And that's what they like. It's like somebody who wants to go climb the Himalayas or something. Like, that's intense. I don't want to do that. Great on you that's your expression. So again, if I come back to play, what are you here to play, to create, and to express? If that's your expression, amazing. Do that. And for me, I needed to put on the pantsuit, and like do that expression to go through the thing for me. And now my expression is different. And I think that there are, I'm wearing pink. I never wore pink in the past. Like, that's a new expression. And I think that there's a wave of many of us who I believed, I don't know what I identify with anymore. I don't identify with much, but I used to be like a very staunch feminist, and like very much in this place of like, I get to do it and I can do everything. And what I realized was I could do everything so well, I didn't need my husband. We're still married 23 years, but it was like, I can take care of the kid, and I can do the house, and I can do this. And then there was no room for him. Nope. And then our polarity, and this is what I, work with women on, was all jacked, because then I'm showing up like a dude in our marriage and bossy and all this stuff because I'm in my thing. And so really playing with, okay, wait, what's the game I want to be in now? And now the game is more of the pink and the feminine, and he wants to do stuff I'm like, do for me. I want to receive that. Right. And that's not where I was 10 years ago. It was different. And one's not better or worse. They're just like different. Like, do you want to play Monopoly or Scrabble? Like, whatever, it's all good. It's your expression during your period of time. So I try to not think that like this way is better. It's not, it's just a different game. Like, whatever, do what it is that's part of your expression in this period.
As long as it's it's in alignment, that's the thing, but I just see so many people that are not in alignment, and they're just doing it because they think that's their only option. Really? And that's just not the only option. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love
We've got to get to know ourselves and follow that impulse from inside. I have this adorable friend who only has, 100% energy out. That's it. That's all. And for him to do business like I do, he would think, gosh, Johanna, you're at, 30% capacity. And I think, perfect. That's exactly where I want to be. And it's such a revelation to me to recognize I can still have the success, the outward success, and have this balance, this elusive balance that for years totally escaped me. So it's more about figuring out what that fit is for you and having the courage to follow that.
Mm-hmm. So can we talk a little bit about sales and marketing? I know that's not necessarily what the title is necessarily, but when we think about building a thriving practice, what I've seen is sometimes it's difficult to either be visible or to say, again, going back to what do I really want? How do I want to be visible? How do I want to show up true to me? Is it, behind the scenes? Is it speaking? Is it, engaging in different ways? But what did you guys find actually worked versus what you felt you needed to do?
I think the problem, my experience was there was a lot of stuff that worked that I did not like. It worked. I made money. I got clients. So but my measure of success, Jamie, like we were talking about earlier, was not, it was solely about like money and clients. And then it shifted to like working with coaches who talked about impact. Like, we're not going to focus on money. We're going to talk about impact. And it was like the same thing, same yardstick, you're just calling it something different. And I'm still feeling kind of stressed. My stuff, I'm not a victim to any of it. I chose it, part of my path. But what I have come to, especially in the last 6 months, but over the last 18 months, is to really see sales and marketing. It's a conversation. I love having conversations. I could sit here and talk to you all day long. So when I'm on Instagram, I'm having a conversation. I don't want to have a conversation when I don't want to have a conversation, like on Sunday. So I am not on Instagram on Sundays or whenever I don't feel like it, right? But having a forced conversation for me doesn't feel good. But having a conversation where I have some download and I'm like, oh, I want to write about this, that feels really good. And then I'm in conversation on my email list, on Facebook, Instagram. And that is working for my success measures. I love how you said, Johanna, like you could be at 30% is like just right. And for where I'm at, like, this is my sweet spot. And if I want to have more conversation, more sales, then maybe I will, but I'm allowing that to come from in here and not from out here.
Yeah. All of my expression comes from connection. Comes from connection with my heart, comes from connection with my spirituality. It comes from connection with my true self. And when I am on fire about something, or something breathes life into me, or I am connected to God and, in some deep way, or connected to my own inner wisdom, and like you said, get a download or see something of beauty or see something that shifts something in me, then I believe that when we're connected to and embodying the essence of who we are, in our pleasure, in our joy, in that easeful, connected place, then it's a natural expression of that happens organically. And that's where it's a natural, your messaging is clear. You don't have to work at your messaging. Your messaging just comes out because it's an expression of who you are. And that's where what I let happen and what I love to allow in my business, and what I teach other people to do, because clarity begets clarity. When you have clarity about who you are and what lights you on fire, and what your contribution or your work I say work is worship. It is the expression of me. When I am expressing that, that's what, it naturally comes out, and it's so fun and it's life-giving. And then it's not depleting, it's rejuvenating.
Yeah. The whole sales and marketing conversation got so much lighter for me when it became relational, when it became about the conversation, and this whole concept of, let's see how this work may be of service to you. Let's see if this is a fit. Let's talk about alignment, instead of any of these techniques that felt very formulaic and just so far out of alignment. I couldn't do it. And like Connie was just saying, what feels depleting? Well, that's a signal. Where can we move towards what's lighter? And I've been following that for years, and it's really brought me into some beautiful places.
It's really interesting. Just recently, I had an opportunity and potential client, and I felt heavier, and I was really kind of disappointed and almost in myself, because I thought this was like kind of an ideal opportunity. And I think the heaviness was because I made the assumption that I couldn't be myself with this client, like that I needed to show up as somebody else. And the reality was I needed to step back, because I need to be myself with this client. But it actually freaked me out, right? Like, it was like I just was in a space where it was feeling maybe a little bit intimidated, and more of like, oh, I don't know if I could be myself here in this way, the way I truly want to show up. And then when I stepped back and realized what he needs is for me to show up exactly as me, then all of a sudden that lightness came back again. So speaking to that, there's just something to identifying heavy and light, and really maybe just recognizing for myself when it is heavy, maybe there's just something I need to learn from it. It doesn't mean it's not something I can lean into, like if something shifts. I don't know if that.
I love that so much, Jamie. Absolutely. And it connects, Joanna. I love what you said about the signal, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we pay attention, and this is the very feminine thing, that when I have a signal of heaviness, it's giving me really important information. And I have taught myself that when my body gives me information, I need to kind of dominate that information. And what's my mindset problem? What's my block? What's my fear? Like there's something wrong with me to override the signal, rather than coming into relationship with the signal, not needing to make the signal mean anything big one way or the other, but just to be with it even instead of signal coming up and then tamp it down and go into, Jamie, like for you, like, here's how I think I should be, which can create so much distortions, in our field and in our relating to people. And so learning how to really come into relationship with our bodies and the signals, the sensations that we're receiving, keeps us true, right, to our own self. So I love that.
Joanna, do you have anything more come up?
Well, I was just in such agreement. There's just such you talk about signal, there's just a yes. And that it's so refreshing to be in a group of women who really get it and who've been in business for years and have found the same thing, that if I try to follow another way, if I try to do what's right, what we're told is right, often we're being further led away from ourselves and that inner wisdom. So yay, big points for inner wisdom.
So how do we juggle, for those that are, starting or not where they hope to be financially, how do we juggle learning and recognizing when we're missing some knowledge versus, again, trusting that inner wisdom? Because sometimes, like I know when I was in a leadership position, I didn't actually have the knowledge that I needed to be able to lead the company. And yet I didn't know, how do we juggle learning and getting a little bit more knowledge, I guess I would say, and being able to trust ourselves? Does anything come up for you there?
Well, I remember working with those brilliant physicians, and they would invite me into some of the most complex cases I've ever been a part of. And so I think there was a respect to who I was working with to recognize I'm at capacity. This is as far as I know how to bring them. And so back to that sort of knowing myself, I do need more tools in my toolbox. There are ways I know I'd like to go farther with my clients, but I can only go this far. And so that was really one of the crossroads that led me into the work I do now, this recognition that, my skills are this far and I need them to be much farther. And so it was this sort of like beautiful combination of the environment I was in and the self-recognition that I do need some more tools here to be able to do the work I know, to create that impact that I know is possible. So yeah, that was my personal experience.
I think there's always, there's always more to learn. And so it's a matter of, if I am tuning into my wisdom, my inner wisdom, there's a knowing there that, and if I'm trusting that, then there's a knowing that I'm on the right path, and there are things that I can trust. How do I begin to trust more of my natural instincts and my natural wisdom and my natural intuition versus being open to constantly growing and receiving knowledge that I know that I need, that is going to take me to the next level. Especially in business or in life. There's always, it's always expanding our knowledge base, but there's that knowing when if we are tuned in, we know when we're shut down and we're not acknowledging a signal inside of us that's trying to tell us something is off, or I'm not listening to something that I need to know. And so, knowledge is great, but knowledge is not wisdom. And so it's understanding the importance of having both and learning to really kind of have that it's not a perfect balance, but just that continuum of, all right, you know, is this learning something new, gaining more knowledge, or is this really trusting what's inside?
Yeah, and I think about what it is that we want. Like if I'm in a leadership role and I want to learn how to do it better, like as a clinician, I wanted to learn more. So I wanted to get more certifications. I had a want in me, which was very authentic, and which is different than, okay, I don't really want this, but I'm willing to do it because I'm here. Like for me, that I'm willing to do it piece is a signal for me internally, where I feel that heaviness, Jamie. That's like, oh, okay, is this about, and this is all this beautiful self-inquiry process, right? Is this because I'm afraid of being seen, afraid of leading, or is it that I actually don't want to learn anymore because I don't want to be in this job, and that's cool too. Which is the value of having coaches and mentors and guides and, other spaces of entrepreneurs that you can talk to about these things, to be self-reflective, to find that wisdom within you, that internal sage that lives in all of us, right? To listen to her.
Johanna, did you have more to share on that, or was there anything?
Yeah, I was just really reflecting. Sometimes we think that next certification is going to give us something. And so are we on the learning journey as a way to self-validate, as a way to build that? And so we want to just really check in to be sure that's not the impulse. For me, I really appreciate this style of work that I'm in because I can be a lifelong learner. That's something that I love to do. But we just want to check in. Am I doing that out of obligation or to feel good about myself or to have that yet another certification that it makes us mean something? Again, come from inside, not the outside.
Mm-hmm. It's when I think about some of the things that you guys are saying, I think about my personality, and I love the different personality assessments. And in like a spirit animal world, I think my spirit animal is like an orca. So I don't see myself as a maybe typical coach sometimes because I'm like the predator of the sea. but there's something about all of this that is just fascinating to me in this world that we're in, of merging what was and what is, and having these opportunities to explore who we are and how we can be unique in that way. Like from an Enneagram perspective, I'm an Enneagram 8, but a growth mode for me is going towards a 2, which is more of a helper, which is, like an 8 can be a very aggressive, lustful type personality. There's never enough type personality. But if I'm going towards a 2, then I'm growing in a way that's kind of uncomfortable for me, but yet beautiful, right? And I can be contributing. I love that word, Jenny, that you said, like, how am I contributing and how am I called to contribute? And I know that it's in being true to me and also growing, right? Like putting myself in those spaces that are uncomfortable so that I am a little bit out there and outside of my comfort zone. We have a couple minutes left before we wrap up at the end of the hour. I would love for all of you to share anything that comes to mind for those that might be building a practice and those that are looking for, what does it really take? Is there anything else that comes to mind that they can take action on, or some gems that you guys have learned?
That's such a big question.
Real life. What is it really like?
Real life. The first thing that comes up for me is find your community that just lifts you up. It's one of the pieces that's made it possible for me. I've been in business for myself for about 16, 18 years now. And I collect different people at different times who are, in some of our worlds, we call that business besties, people who I can go when I have the idea that I'm like, this is a crazy idea. Can you hold this with me? And they are not going to snuff out my flame.
That's right.
They're going to see the brilliance, and also, be available when I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just said that on a live Zoom call or whatever, a podcast. And so to have people in your corner who just adore you, so that you can practice the play, the creativity, and the expression of yourself in a safe place, and try it out as you're, putting yourself out there in the world. I think that's the first thing for me that comes
I'm
up.
really glad you mentioned that about community, because I've also found that same thing when everything hits the fan and it seems like it's not going according to plan. And I've reached out to people in my circle and they've been like, you're right where you're supposed to be. I know that you're, on the path. And I found the self-judgment of myself to be so much worse than the people that are in my circle. I'm like, thank you. Thank you.
Oh yeah, community cannot be understated. That's huge. But I think real clarity around where you want to go, what work you want to do, what impact is important to you. So that has been really helpful for me to shut out the noise from the outside. That there's this sort of real individuated path that is meaningful to me, so that I can kind of check back. Am I in alignment? Is this right? Am I going in the right direction? And does this kind of meet what I set out to do?
I love all of that. And community, yes, has changed my life. And I was, as a performer, you can't, as a performer and achiever all of my life, I learned really early on in my growth process that you can't compete and compare and connect. And so the connection had to trump my need to compare and compete. And so I had to get really vulnerable and really ask for help and stop trying to pretend that I could figure it out myself, or I had it all together, or I needed to prove something to me or to someone else. And I had to really take a risk to let people get to know me and to say, hey, I'm struggling, or hey, I don't have the answer to this, or hey, I need some help. This is where I am, and I'm scared. I'm feeling desperate. I'm feeling, whatever I was feeling, anxious. I don't know what to do with this fear. I am not okay like this. This isn't working for me, whatever. And just say it and trust that the person that, that you were, the person that is designed to be in your life, or is right for where you are, will be there when you are ready to get honest with yourself and be vulnerable. And so if you've been trying to keep it all in and hold it all together, and you're like, I'm not doing a very good job of this, and I need someone to talk to, then that person will either come in your path, or you already know who they are. And I would say, pick up the phone, have an honest conversation, let that part of you out and ask for what you need. Because this isn't, a performance. This is about you being cared about and loved, and about people coming alongside you and you not having to do it all. And that's where true freedom is, when you can let that out.
That's so beautiful. And I think for myself, practicing vulnerability is actually, like, I think of myself as very open. You ask me a question, I'll answer it, whatever it is. But actually being vulnerable, putting myself out there before people ask, and asking for that help is like another level. So I heard community, vulnerability, and then Johanna, you mentioned about just really getting clarity on, and being willing to really put that crazy stuff out there. Like you had mentioned earlier today, Jenny, about how if you had $50 million in your bank account, what would you create and what would you do? And I love that. I love asking people, even if it's $1 million.
Right.
Like, I like to have a plan right now today that if somebody gave me $1 million, I have the design, I'm ready to go. Like, and operating from that space helped me to realize that I wouldn't change the house that I'm in. I wouldn't change the car that I drive. Like, what are the things that I would change if I had what I think is going to make a difference in my life? And then just realizing I could probably have it today. I could probably already do it, and just acknowledging it. So thank you so much for this conversation today. And I really feel like I've been blessed. So thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thanks for
Thank you
having
for the invitation.
Thanks for being
Thank
here.
you all. Yes.
And it's still live, even though I've hit end broadcast. So here's the afterglow party.
Hi. Oh, hi, Chris. Glad she made it in.
Thank you so much, and we'll see if we can try again. Otherwise, we'll just have to close out of our
The awkward smile. So, and
yeah, I don't know why, but it is not ending broadcast. So I will try closing out of my browser, and we'll see you ladies next time.
Okay. Bye, guys.